Welcome to the 31st Singapore International Film Festival. I'm Anthony Chen. I'm a filmmaker from Singapore, and it's 7 p.m. now in Singapore. It's 8 p.m. now in Japan, and it's 11 a.m. for me in London. It's quite interesting that we are in different time zones, but we are all sort of like speaking and sharing together here today. I'm very, very pleased today to be hosting and moderating the In Conversation with esteemed Japanese producer Shozo Ichiyama. Apart um, from this session, Ichiyama-san is also our head mentor of the Southeast Asian Film Lab this year. Um, I'm gonna get started by introducing Shozo Ichiyama-san. Like I've known him for 10 years now, because of Filmex. But I did some research into your background, and I was quite amazed actually by your entire career. So Ichiyama-san, you started
Yeah.
literally a film career in
Okay.
1987 in Shojiku at the
Okay.
oldest
Okay.
Japanese
Yes.
studio. So how did
Okay. Okay.
how did it all started?
Yes. Actually, I studied economics in the universities, and I didn't study the filmmaking at a university, but I'm a big fan of the film cinemas, and I watched so many films in the cinemas or the art cinemas or the cinematheques and but I didn't have uh, any intention to become the producers. But when my last year in the university, I happen to know that Shochiku is one of the oldest film studios in Japan, and they are now recruiting the new assistant director. It's a kind of a big news because in Japan in the 1980s, already the studio system is almost collapsed. So it was very active until 1960s, but after television became film studios that could not make so many films, and in 1980s already that the Shochiku did not recruit newcomers to the studios. So it's a kind of big news that the big old studios suddenly started to recruit the newcomers, and then uh, I knew it in the some newspapers. Some newspapers. Then I thought, oh, it may be interesting that so how is the exam for the new for the assistant director? So then I applied, and I never made any films before, and I never wrote script anything. But the one of the big thing in exam is I must write the script in 1 hour or something, and I forgot how many hours, but and then I wrote a very bad script. I never wrote script before, so, and I thought, oh, it's a very bad script. Maybe I cannot be the assistant director. Then and later, Shochiku Studios called me that so unfortunately we cannot have you as an assistant director because your script is not so good. So but if you are interested in the other jobs and in the filmmaking, so please join the studios. And I told them, so which kind of other jobs? And they said that, for example, so we need some producer, we need some promotion people, we need some people who are working in cinema like this, and okay, I would like to be the producer. So and actually I didn't have any ideas of what is the work for the producers. I know that maybe producer is somebody who is in charge of the filmmaking, but I didn't know that which kind of jobs producers should do. But anyway, I thought maybe the producer must be also interested to me. So and I told the Shochiku, so okay, I'll join the studios. And then I entered Shochiku Studios. But in the first years, I couldn't work for the filmmaking because I was appointed to be the cinemas. And one year I worked in the one of the big cinemas which was on the Shochiku. But later, Shochiku needs some young producer as an assistant. So then maybe the executives remember that there's one young guy who would like to be the producer. So, and actually, I don't know what should I do. But anyway, I was called to the headquarters office. Then I started to work as an assistant producer. So this means that I happened to be the producer. Then after I became the assistant producer, and I started to learn what the producer's job is. And but of course it's very interesting because the first film I was working is it's called 226, which is a very big budget films, and it's about Japanese coup d'etat in the beginning of the 20th century, and based on the real incidents with many big stars and big set and yes, I was amazed. But and the director is a very famous veteran filmmakers and it's somewhat interesting because now now I'm only working for the very independent films with a very low budget. But my first film was a very big studios film. But I learned many things from this film because maybe it's a kind of last time that such a big studio film are made. One amazing thing is there's a very old sound recordist, and he told me that he worked for the Mizoguchi's film. So it's amazing. Oh, he's a sound recordist of Mizoguchi's films, and actually he even worked for the during the World War II. So there was very yeah, and of course, I didn't have a chance to talk with them so many times, but I'm very impressed that I'm working with such a legendary people in my first film. But anyway, yeah, I started the film like this, and one big thing is, and I met Takeshi Kitano there because Takeshi Kitano, he was at that time he was a very popular comedian, and also and he appears in many TV shows, and sometimes he's working as an actor. And there was a project that Takeshi, but at first Takeshi Kitano was just the main actor. He was not the director, and the director is Kinji Fukasaku. So he was one of the legendary gangster master of the gangster films, and so Berlin Cop was supposed to be directed by Fukasaku, and Takeshi was just a main actor. But that Takeshi was too busy, and his schedule was very tough, and and then finally that the director Fukasaku said that I'm sorry, I cannot make this film in this short time. So and he quit. And then that the main producer, so he was my boss, and my boss was main producer of the project. So he's very embarrassed. And then that he tried to find some other filmmakers, but actually some of the younger filmmakers would like to do this works, but compare with the big name Fukasaku, and every filmmakers must be not appropriate for this project. Then my boss decided to cancel this project, and he had a dinner with Takeshi Kitano, and so before he went to the dinner, he told me that so unfortunately, so I decided to cancel this project because it's not good to make a film with unknown filmmakers, and I can't find any replacement. So but and the next day in the mornings, and I met my boss again in the office, and he said, "Oh, and we will start this film because Takeshi agreed to be the director." What? Takeshi was the director. It's a big surprise. I didn't expect it, or maybe but my boss did not expect it at all. So, but during the meeting, that Takeshi said that I do not want to cancel this project because and I already arranged all my schedule. So if I cancel it, it must be the I will lose my face because all other comedians already changed the schedules for him, but I do not want to cancel it. Then finally, this okay, I will direct the film. I will try to direct the film, so like this. I don't know how exactly how he said exactly, but probably like this, and then suddenly that Takeshi Kitano will be the director and main actor of this film. And so it's a very amazing because he did not have any experience to direct the films, but I think he has some cinematic sense because he's a big fan of cinemas, and when he was young, so film every day, and he didn't remember it very well. He didn't remember which film he watched, but probably I think so he had a kind of cinematic sense. So when he started shooting, so I was amazed because at first he had crushed some of the crew members, but because crew members would like to make the kind of the orthodox film, but Takeshi Kitano would like to make something new. So in the beginning there was some clash with the crew members, but finally crew members agreed. Crew members understood what Takeshi Kitano would like to make. Then finally, yes, and the film is made, and it's a much more than we expected, or nobody expected that Takeshi Kitano made such a good films as his first time director. So, and yes, and I'm kind of the yes yes, and actually I didn't do anything to this program. I was just a kind of assistant producer, but and I watched that the one talented filmmaker was born. So when I yes, and finished this films, and I thought, oh, I got to continue to in the film industry. So such a miracle happens. It's amazing world, I think.
And
And
it's very fascinating because after Shojiku, you actually join Kitano's company.
yes, 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 yes. And yeah,
You worked
yeah,
with him for many years. But I'm
yes, yes,
actually
yes, yes.
interested in finding out one thing, which is, unlike most Japanese
Mm,
producers
mm,
who
mm.
make very, very local,
Yes,
they're
yes, yes.
probably
Mm.
focusing more on the domestic market in
Yeah,
Japan.
yeah, yeah,
But Ichiyama-san, like you have always, like to everyone else, looking at your
yeah, yeah,
career, you've always been
yeah.
so international. You've probably produced like more films outside of Japan than in
Yes,
Japan.
yes, yes, yes,
Um,
yes,
and
yes, yes.
and even at Shojiku, like you
Yeah.
produced three films by Ho Xiaoxian, Good
Yes,
Man, Good
yes,
Woman,
yes, 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 yes.
Goodbye South,
Yeah,
Goodbye, Flowers of
yeah,
Shanghai. I'm very
yeah,
curious to know
yeah.
um, how did Ho Xiaoxian come into the picture at Shojiku, and
Yes,
how
yes,
did
yes,
you
yes,
end up
yes.
being responsible for these films?
Yeah, yeah, and yes, and also it's also and yes, kind of happening or a kind of the coincidence because after a few years I was sent to Tokyo International Film Festival because Tokyo International Film Festival is organized by the four major Japanese studios, and then each studios will send somebody to help the film festival. And other three studios already sent somebody, but only Shochiku did not send anybody. And that the Tokyo Film Festival tell to the president of the Shochiku company that please send somebody to help our festival. Then that I don't know. I just finished producing my film called Nowhere Man, and which is directed by some Japanese actor Naoto Takenaka. And actually, I was preparing the distribution of the film, but that maybe the president thinks that oh, the film is already completed. Maybe Ichiyama must be very free, so he has nothing to do. Then he asked me to help the Tokyo Film Festival. Then it was 1991, and I just and at that time already that all of the films are confirmed. So I didn't I was not involved in any selection, but I helped. Actually I remember I met Gary Nugroho there, Indonesian filmmaker. When
Yeah,
Tokyo Film
Gary
Festival showed his
Indonesian
no
filmmaker. Yes.
yeah his first feature film, and it was selected in Tokyo Film Festival, and he came to Tokyo, and I met him in the cinema, but because yes, and so actually he's my first foreign friend filmmakers, so Gaurins, and yes, it was 1991. Then after the 1992, Tokyo Film Festival asked me to help the selection of the film because at that time that there are already several programmers in Tokyo Film Festival, but they are not so interested in Asian films. And there are some very famous critics there, but he's almost interested in some European films, and he doesn't have not so much knowledge about the Asian cinemas. But the young man from Shochiku knows many things about the Asian films because, but actually I was just a movie fan of Asian films because in 1980s and I watched many Asian films already, like Ho Xiaoshen or Chen Kai-ku or Zhang Yimou, or even I like the Hong Kong action films, John Woo or the Ling Lam and Sui Hawks and yes, I didn't have any intention to work with them, but I was just a fan of this kind of the Asian films, but probably at that time in the Tokyo Film Fest office, I was yes, and I was the best person who knows the Asian film. Then they asked me to select a film for the Asian sidebar called the Best of Asian Film section. And so it was in 1992. And in 1993, I selected the Ho Xiaoshen's Puppet Master as the opening film of my section. That's why I met him. Of course, I watched most of his films already, the City of Sadness or the Dust in the Wind. Yeah, I'm a big fan of him. And so I saw his new film as an opening film, and I met him. And next year, in 1994, Ho Xiaoshen's assistant called me. It's I think it's maybe June or July. And then yes, his assistant told me that Ho Xiaoshen has a big trouble now because he was preparing his new film, Good Men, Good Women. And because one company promised him to invest 1 million US dollars. And Ho Xiaoshen can find money from the Taiwanese government because Taiwanese government has a very good support system, and so he can expect 400,000 US dollars and from them, but he needs 1 million US dollars. And one company confirmed him to invest 1 million dollars, and he started find the crew members and confirm the cast, but and suddenly that this company told him that I'm sorry, we cannot invest the film anymore. Our company's the situation, financial situation is very bad. Then so yes, he had a big problem because he already promised to shoot the film to the actors or crew members. Then his assistant told me, is there any chance that he can find some investors in Japan? Because the City of Sadness and also Puppet Master made a quite good job in Japan. So and maybe that's why that his assistant expected to have the money from Japan. So and I yes, okay, I will try to find and then that and actually I didn't expect that the Shochiku Studios will invest in because Shochiku is a big studios and mainly they're producing many commercial films. And but and I again I talked with my boss and he's also the executive producer of Takeshi Kitano films, the same guy, and his name is Okuyama, and, uh, he was my boss at the time, and he was in charge of the production in Shochiku at the time. Then I told that and Ho Xiaoshen is now looking for the money for his new films, and he said how much he needs, 1 million US dollars. Okay, we can invest it. So that's it. And he didn't. He even didn't ask me what the film is, and he didn't ask me the story. He just said, "Oh, 1 million. Yes, okay, we can invest it." So and then that the Shochiku Studios started to work with Ho Xiaoshen, and I'm be the producers who represent the Shochiku Studios. And later I knew why. Why? Because at that time Shochiku is Shochiku organized a big film fund, and but this fund is for only for the international co-production. And the reason that Shochiku organized this fund is Shochiku would like to make the remake of the Shochiku film in Hollywood. And actually, there is a film called Yellow Handkerchief. And Universal Studios is interested in the remake of the film, and Shochiku has already had an agreement. And so the Shochiku organized a big fund, which is for the international co-production. But it's very because the Yellow Handkerchief is a big project for Shochiku, but it's one of the small projects for Universal, and they're very slow. And after signed the agreement, so some director attached, some left, so some time passed, and the people who invested this fund started complaining that why that how long we can make we can wait for the new film. So Shochiku needs something for this fund, some international project for this fund. And Hoshiasen's film is an international production, of course. And this fund is actually it's 50 million US dollars. So 1 million US dollars is very small money for Shochiku Studios. So that's why that my boss immediately told me that okay, we can work with Hoshiasen. So in this case, Hoshiasen he's very lucky, I think. If I try to find some Japanese investors, and maybe it takes us some time, so we are not sure we can raise the money so before the shooting. Yeah, shooting starts in the September, but so in June or July, or maybe it was August, Shochiku already decided to invest the film, and so and I went to the Taiwan, and I yes, and and so we made a agreement like this, and everything's very quick. And so and finally the film is made on time. So this is the beginning of the uh, collaboration with Ho Xiaoshen. So this means that again, I did not have intention to work with Ho Xiaoshen. I'm just a big fan of his films, but so in this for this various reasons, I started work with him, and then it continued for the Goodbye South Goodbye, and also Flowers Shanghai. And later Ho Xiaoshen told me that it was very helpful for him because after Puppet Master, he thought he would like to change his style. Actually, Good Men, Good Women is a not easy film. It's a very complex narratives, and cut back in the past and the present. So it's a kind of big challenge for him. And Goodbye South Goodbye is also very challenging. It's a very there is no script at all, and so everything is very free. So it's a very some strange filmmaking, but since that the Shochiku already attached to invest the money like 1 million US dollar something, so and he can do what he would like to do. And Flow Shanghai is also a very challenging project. It's a big budget. It's a yes, something big budget film, and with a but for the Shochiku Studio, it's okay to invest like 2 million US dollars something, and then he could make from Shanghai. So he was, and I think he was very lucky. And so unfortunately that these three films could not make a big success in the cinema because it's very welcomed by film critics, but for the audiences, it's not easy film to show. But
Are you talking about
anyway,
Flowers of Shanghai?
yes,
Because Flowers
yes.
of Shanghai actually did very, very well in France.
In France, very good. Yes. And and actually, that the world sales are very good because in France, and I think that the audiences exceeded 200,000. So many audiences, and I think that the French distributor did a very good job, and they promote the film very well. But in Japan, the film is not so at a big box office as we expected because it's a very artistic films and not the commercial films at all. So and
Is
finally, I
that the
think this,
reason
yeah.
why after that Shojiku didn't finance Hou Xiaoxian's films anymore after that
Uh,
film?
no, later Shochiku financed two films. One is one is Cafe Lumiere.
But
Cafe Lumiere.
this is after you have already left Shojiku,
Yeah,
yes?
yes, yes.
You're already
Yeah,
office.
yeah, yeah. And at that time, and when the first shot Cafe Lumiere, I already left the Shochiku, but one of my friend was in charge of the producing the film. So and actually, that yes, and Shochiku did not invest the Millennium Mambo, so it's also some kind of difficult film to do. But for the yes, and Cafe Lumiere Shochiku invested most of the money, and also the Shochiku put some money for the Assassin. Not big money, just for the Japanese rights, but
I'm quite curious, like during
yeah,
your time in Shojiku, on those
yeah,
three films that you worked with Hou Xiaoxian, what were some of, especially as a Japanese producer sort of working,
yes,
outside,
yes, 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 yeah,
like Japan, what were
yeah,
some of the challenges working with like director Hou Xiaoxian?
yeah. One reason is and actually, before starting working with Hoshashin, I was not thinking about working with the foreign filmmakers. But after I started working with Hoshashin, actually, it's because Hosha is a great filmmaker, and he is a very good person, and I also like his personality very much, and also I like the people around him. So so yes, his friends are very nice, and also that so at that time I had a feeling that maybe I would like to do something most of the people did not do this because actually as you say that most of the Japanese film producers only work with the Japanese filmmakers because it's very complicated and it's very risky to work with the foreign filmmakers or the foreign countries and for the co-production because there are many complicated agreement and sometimes that if you that some opinion is clashed with the foreign filmmakers, it will becomes a some big problems and so not so many Japanese producers want to work with the foreign filmmakers. There's there is one exception. His name is Toru Iseki, and he's very older than me. So so he's the only person who works with the foreign because he's a producer of the Wayne One's Smoke or the Chen Kaiko's assassin or something. It's a assassin. It's the first emperor or something. I forgot the English title. And there's one producer who keeps working with foreign filmmakers, and I thought it must be interesting, and also that I like the film producer called Jeremy Thomas. And at that time, I didn't know him, and later I met him, and I started work with him in the Takeshi Kitano film Brothers. But before that, I didn't know him, but I know his name in many films like Merry Christmas, Mr. Lawrence, or the Bertolucci's Last Emperor, or the yeah, like this, and I'm very interested in this. So he's a British producer, but he's working with some foreign filmmakers and helping the very some kind of art house films. And of course, Last Emperor and what Merry Christmas Lawrence is a big film, but the film has a very good art and it's very some of the very artistic films and Bertolucci or Oshima, so they're very good filmmakers. So he helps the good filmmakers to make the good films. And yes, and I think that this kind of these producers are very interesting for me. So and when I started working with Hoshash and I thought, oh, it must be very interesting to keep working with foreign filmmakers rather than the ordinary Japanese filmmakers.
I'm very curious as well, like from Hou Xiaoxian, I want
Mm,
to move to, like you work with a lot of other international directors, even from
yeah.
China, from Iranian, from Kazakhstan. But
Yeah.
I know, one filmmaker that we are all very familiar with, like in terms of your collaboration, is
Mm.
Jia Zhangke.
Yes, yes, yes,
And
yes, yes, yes,
and I read that you met him in 1998 at the
yes, yes,
Berlin
yes,
Film
yes.
Festival.
Yes, right.
So how
Yeah,
did how did this meeting come about? How did this collaboration started? And
yeah.
the first film you worked on was Platform.
Yes, yes, yes. And yeah, actually, yes, I was in Berlin Film Festival in 1998. One purpose is I'm still watching for the Tokyo International Film Festival, so I would like to watch some new films. And another purpose is it was middle of the shooting of the Flower Shanghai, and we need some European distributor. So I was in Taiwan, and then I fly to Berlin from Taipei, and with at a at a at a still photos, because shot in the location, because I went to the market in Berlin Film Festival, Berlin market, and showed these photos to the buyers, and so this is a very yes, and somewhat important mission, because we must of course we'd like to present the film to Cannes Film Festival, but before that it's much better to find a European distributor, and or the sales agent something, and then that's now it's not necessary for me to bring the photos. We just send it by email. But in 1998, so we didn't use email at the time. So then I fly to Berlin with many beautiful photos, and it worked. It worked because before Cannes Film Festival, and we sold the European rights to ARP. It's a big French company. So yes, and that's the reason that the film made a very good success in France. But anyway, and I was in Berlin and for these two reasons, and I happened to watch the Jajang's Shao. And of course, I'm really interested in watching the new filmmakers from China. So that's why I watched the film, and I was very fascinated with the film. I have no information about the film, because it's first film, and it's a graduation film from Beijing Film Academy. But I'm very fascinated with the films. The film is shot in his hometown, Fenyang, in Shanxi province, and of course I never visited the Shanxi province before. But and when during I watched the film, I felt that oh, now I'm in this town, and this town is very familiar. So later I visited the Fenyang when I shooting during the shooting of the platform, and I felt the same feelings when I watched the film Show. So I think this means that and I think this filmmaker has a very big talent and to capture the atmosphere. So and it's very new to me, because and he's different from all other Chinese filmmakers. So he's something new, so, and some very new talent, I think. And then after I watched the films, and I have something to some other jobs, and I didn't have a chance to talk with him in the cinema. He was in cinemas, and he did a Q&A, but the Q&A is only the German and Chinese, and I couldn't understand what he says. So and I left the cinemas, and then and a few days later, I happened to meet him in one restaurant, because in the restaurant the Japanese industry people who attended the Berlin Film Festival gathering, so they have the dinner, and Jajanke and Yuri Kwai, so a cameraman, so they are with them, because Jajanke and Yurika they came to Berlin together, but they are very alone. They do not know anybody there. They are not actually, because they are not belongs to the Chinese film industry. So and they are very alone. And then that they know the Yamagata Documentary Film Festival director. There is yeah, the name is Asako Fujioka. So she's a director of the Yamagata Documentary Film Festival. Because Yuriko attended the Yamagata Documentary Film Festival at in the 1 day earlier, no, the previous year. He attended Yamagata, so they have nothing to do. So and they meet the director of Yamagata Documentary Film Festival, and they went to this restaurant. and I was there. I happened to meet Jajanko and Yuri Kwai, and then I introduced myself. That yes, I watched your film very much, and Jajanko says, "What are you doing now?" And I told him that I'm producer of Ho Shen's films. Now he's making Flower Shanghai, and then the Jajanko told me that he has a new project. It's a platform, but and actually platform is the project he really wants to make, but he doesn't have the money in China at that time. It's very difficult to find the money for the this kind of young filmmakers. So that's why he made Shao in the very small budget. And but he said he really wants to make the platform, and he told me that, and I asked him, so what is the film? And he explains, and actually he already prepared some English synopsis, but later he gave it to me. But in the restaurant he kept talking, and Yuriko is translating everything. And then yes, I'm very much interested in this project because yes, it's about Chinese young people in 1980s, and at the beginning that they are singing some very patriotic songs and communist songs, but then it changes to some rock music or the breakdowns or something, and the film showed a love story, but also it showed some change in China in 1980s, and with the change of the music. So and yes, I think this is very interesting, and yeah, he's very talented, and the project is very interesting. And it seems that he's a very nice, nice man, and yes, and sometimes he's very funny, and sometimes he looks very serious, and I'm very fascinated with his personality. So and then yes, I told him that yes, you finish the script, present me. Maybe I'll try to find some money. And so that's the beginning, and later, yes, and Flower Shanghai was made, yes, and finally finished, and it was selected in Cannes. But there's a big change in Shochiku Studios at the time, because my boss, Mr. Okuyama, so yes, he was kicked out from the company because of many of his films made a loss, and then some people who accused him, so, and then sometimes he was kicked out from the studios. Then I was told by the new executive that now that our studios is now had some big problems in the financing problems, and we cannot make the art house film anymore. So you can produce a film, but you must produce some commercial Japanese films. And so yeah, and yes, I think that it's not interesting for me to work for the commercial film that time. Then coincidentally, Office Kitano, Takeshi Kitano's company, this company is trying to find a new producer, because before Takeshi Office Kitano only produces Kitano's films, but the president of the Office Kitano decided to also decided to make the other films by the younger filmmakers. Actually, they made one film which is directed by the assistant director of Takeshi Kitano's film. So this is the beginning, and then the president is trying to find a producer who is taking care of the other project. Then of course, I know the president. President name is Mr. Mori. I know the president, and of course, I know the Takeshi Kitano. And after his first feature film, so then I met the president, and then yes, and I discussed with him, and when I met him, I have Jajanku in my mind. So, and I told to the president of Japan that are you interested in working with the foreign filmmakers? And he said, of course, yes. And why not? So let's discuss about this project. Then, so when I received the script from Jajanku, First, I quit Shochiku Studios and joined the Office Kitano. Then I received the script from Jajanku and show it to the president. So it's very interesting project. So you should. Then in the Busan Film Festival is in October, and we met together. So I met Jajanku and Rikitmi. Rikitmi is the Hong Kong producer of the platform, and also that Mr. Mori, so from Houston. So we everybody meet together, and we decide to produce the platform. So this is a yes stories of why I started work with Jajanku. So actually when after I met Jajanku in Berlin. So when I came back to Japan, I was told to from the Shochiku studio that now we are only making the commercial films. And at that time, maybe I thought that if I kept working from Shochiku Studios, probably I cannot work with just a young guy from China with whom I met in Berlin. So probably that's the reason I quit Shochiku and joined Office Kitano. Because some people are against, some of my friends are against with this idea, because the Shochiku is anyway it's a big studios and it's somewhat stable. But Office Kitano, so we don't know. And when the Kitano is making the films, of course it's okay, but it's a kind of independent production, so nobody knows what happens with this production. So some my friends are against with my idea, but I saw that if I kept working for Shochiku, I cannot work with this young Chinese filmmaker, and then that's the main reason I quit Shochiku and joined Office Kitano.
I'm very curious actually, what
Yeah,
is it like, since you met him in 998, you
yeah.
have sort of like continued to work with Jajanka. It's over 20 years, of
Yes, yes,
producing.
yes, 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 yes.
So
Yeah.
I'm curious, like, what is it like, like working with him? And also, for
Mm.
ourselves, we have seen sort of like his work over the years, from Platform, which is a
Mm.
much smaller film,
Yeah, yeah,
to
yeah.
like, the latest one, Ash is the Purest White.
Yes, 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 yes,
Of
yes, yes.
course, like with the Chinese market opening up. If I'm not wrong,
Yeah, yeah,
correct me if I'm wrong. Ash is the
yeah,
Purest White. Budget was like
yeah.
8 to 10 million US.
Yes, yes,
So,
yes, yes, yes.
so like basically, his filmmaking has evolved, has changed,
Yeah,
and also the scale of the budgets have changed. So how do you, I'm curious, like how do you work with him as a producer, and how do you
yeah.
deal with this changing sort of like
Yes,
scale and
yeah,
budget?
yeah. Actually, in the beginnings, yes, I must work very hard because before making the platform, he was banned from Chinese government. So officially, he couldn't make a film in China. And so this means that even if he could make the films, it cannot be released in China. So we cannot expect anything from the Chinese investors. So we must find all the budget from abroad. And so for the platform, and yes, when we started work, that half of the money is confirmed from the Hong Kong companies, and so we can just invest half of the rest of the half from Japan. But for the unknown pleasures or the words, so I must find all of the most of the budget from abroad. So it's very hard, but one thing is, yes, I would like to say is that Jajanko is he's a kind of very stubborn filmmaker, he did yes, and he has a very strong mind, so sometimes he insists many things, but he kept his words. And for the platforms, actually during shooting, we had a very big problem because Jajanku did not stop the shootings, he added many scenes and on the set, and so the shootings is extended, and so we have the over budgeted, and we must find and, myself and the Hong Kong producers must find additional money to find some European funds. So we applied, so finally we could get a fund from France or Swiss or something. So it's a very hard production, and the film is very long. So the first version of the platform, which is showing in Venice, was 3 hours and 10 minutes. And during the post-production, Jajang told me that I cannot cut anymore. So this is my director's cut. I told me, at that time I already started to talk with a French sales agent, and the French sales agent said that they watched the rough cut of the platform, and so they love the film a lot. But they think that we cannot sell the 3 hours film for the world market. So if the film can be the under 2 hours and a half, so we can handle the wholesale rights and we can give the minimum guarantees. And so I'm very honest. So I told to Jajanku that yes, actually I like this 3 hours cut, but with this cut, I cannot recoup any money. So please try to edit the film to 2 hours and a half. And Jajang said, okay, I promise. And actually, even Jajanku told me that actually I didn't believe him. Maybe, or maybe he's saying some such thing, but maybe later he may say that I cannot cut anymore or like this. But after the screenings the Venice, actually he actually tried to cut the film. Then after 2 months, he cut the 2 hours and a half version, and which was premiered in Berlin Film Festival next year. So yes, he kept his promise actually that and the next time and next project is Unknown Pleasures. And at that time that we cannot expect any money from China, and we cannot find so big money and from the world sales, because the platform was very welcomed by the film critics, but the sales result is not so fantastic, because 2 hours and a half is still long film, and not so big revenues. So we cannot get big revenue. And then for the Unknown Pleasures, the sales agent say that yes, and we can only invest like 150,000 US dollars or something. And I think that I can raise money from Japan and Korea, so 100,000, another 150,000. So I told Jajaku that yes, I can only find 300,000, and if you can make shoot the film within the 2 weeks, you can start this film. Otherwise, I can't find the money anymore. Then said, okay, I'll promise. Then he finished shooting in 2 weeks. And it's a very short, because for the platform it took like more than 3 months for shooting. But for the Unknown Pleasures, and he finished the film as he promised. So and I think yes, actually, for myself, I don't have so bad experience, but some of the filmmakers had big problems with some filmmakers. So sometimes filmmakers betrayed, they didn't keep their words. Every time we had some problems, so Jajanku kept his mind, kept his words. But actually, when I first met him, and I had a feeling that I think I can work with this filmmaker, because sometimes he's very honest. He did not pretend anything, and he looks like honest. He looks very honest. And then yes, and probably so this kind of things. Probably this is the reason I'm keeping working with him for these 20 years. And also there are several other things that yes, and I'm very impressed by his what he did. So then sort of these things kept me working with him. But after the success of the Still Life, and he can find big money in China, and I think he's also a very lucky filmmaker, because when he started his career, he cannot expect any money in China. But after 2005, 2005, 2006, like this, there was a big boom big economic boom in China, and many people try to invest filmmaking. And Jajanku's name is also became very big after his winning in Venice and by Still Life. And so he's very lucky. So and after Still Life, he could find most of the money in China, and I'm only in charge of find like a 10% of the budget from Japan. And of course I must do something to discuss with the French companies, because for example, for touch up scenes, we need some world sales minimum guarantee from French company, or for the mountains media parts. And we first started work with MK2 as a co-producer. So there are many paperworks and so very long agreement, something. So then yes, and I order and we submitted the project to the Cinema du Monde. So there are again many paperwork. This kind of things yes, I worked very hard, but the basic investments, so Jiajianghu could find most of the budget from China. So now that yes, so recently that my works are less and less, and so because he's very experienced, but still actually even without myself, he can make the film now. But every time he asks me to join as a producer, maybe just kind of supervisor or something, that he just asks me who he's going the good right direction on or not. And sometimes I give him advice, not so much, but he still asks me to involve in his filmmaking. So that's why I kept working with him.
So I'm gonna move on from producing, because I know that
Yeah.
you wear, like different hats as well. By the way, like to our participants and to our audience, we have a Q&A tab. So along the way,
Yeah.
if you have questions, do it on. We'll try and ask Shozo later. But
Yes.
I know that apart from being a film producer, you wear a
Mm.
different hat as a film programmer, a festival
Yeah.
director
Yeah.
as well.
Yes. Yeah.
And it started with the Tokyo International Film Festival. You
Yeah.
were in
Yeah.
charge of,
Yeah.
but
Yeah. Yeah.
you started your own festival in
Yes. Yes. Yes.
2000
Yes.
with
Yeah.
Tokyo Film
Yeah.
Max.
Yes.
Tell us about it.
Yes, yes, okay. And actually, I've been working in Tokyo films a long time, and like 10 years, and from 1992 to not 10 years, 1992 to 1999, yeah, and 7 or 8 years. And then after 1999, I quit the Tokyo Film Festival. There are several reasons that Tokyo Film Festival is yes, it's a big film festival, and it's sometimes very bureaucratic. So actually, at that time I was very fed up and in the some politics and inside the film festival. So so I want to quit. And also that and I had I started to work with the Jajanku and after 1998. So the platform is supposed to be shot and in 2000. So and I would like to concentrate on the as a producer. For these reasons, that in '99 I quit the Tokyo Film Festival, and in 2000 that some of my colleagues in Office Kitano started at a started to raise the budget for the small new film festival. It is because of the president of Fushikano, Mr. Mori. So he has some opinion that in Japan that we need the alternative film festival. Tokyo Film Festival is a big film festival, so it is okay. But I think he thinks that in Japan we need some smaller film festival which will really support the independent young filmmakers. And then I quit Tokyo Film Festival, so I do not have any obligation to Tokyo Film Festival anymore. Then that my colleagues in Office Canon started to find some money. Then that in June, my colleague told me that so we can do the film festival because we have some kind of the 400,000 US dollars something. And we don't have any support from the government at the time because it's too late to apply for the government money. So we just started to make the film festival with a private fund. And one of the big private fund is Johnny Walker. Johnny Walker, and in this year, Takeshi Kitano is appearing in the advertisement Johnny Walker's. It's a keep working or something like that. And Johnny Walker's then agreed to invest $200,000 for the film festival. So in June, yeah, my colleague told me, so we have enough money to do the small film festival. Why don't you start film festival? Okay, and then yeah, I was also already busy because shooting platform already started. But anyway, for the selection, I think that I have a confidence that I can find a good Asian films because I already had good networks in Asian producers or sales agents something, and so that's why that we started the film festival, but it's mainly concentrating on the Asian films. So this is the beginning of the Tokyo Film Fest. Actually, I'm a director from the first edition, but I'm not the person who started the film festival. My colleagues or the president of Office Kitano started it, and they asked me to be the director. And so in the first year, there are many confusions, and we can find a very good last film Up Japan Will Setakun or the Low Years Sucho River. So this is very good for the programming. It's very good, but yes, for the organization, it's very complicated or the some chaotic. But anyways, we started the new film festival, and the reason yes, and first reason is and, uh, actually during the Tokyo Film Festival, I try to introduce a very good Asian films in my sidebar. But even if we show the good films, that most of the attention to goes to the big commercial films or Hollywood films, and the audiences who came to watch my section is very satisfied. But and after that, nobody knows which kind of film are shown. So I think that smaller film festival may attract more audiences or the more press, so that's the reason that in Tokyo Filmex that we had a competition for the young filmmakers films. So that almost every time that the winner is unknown filmmakers, but it was backed by some newspapers, and we had a very good review in the newspapers later. And some of the films which won the award could find a distributor after the festival is finished. So this is the things that we must do. We thought we must do this, at first it was very hard to find enough money. But from the second year, we could apply the government fund, so we could the government thinks that it's a very good festival to we must support it, and we can find some part of maybe 1/3 of the money comes from the government fund. So so this is a yes reason that we started the Tokyo Filmex. But and now that and later and after 10 years we started Talent Tokyo, and you are the first alumni
Yeah,
from Talent
actually,
Tokyo, and yeah,
I've been to Tokyo Film X 3 times, and
yes, yes, yes,
I'm very thankful to Tokyo Film X because, like you said, in 2010, they
yeah,
started. It was originally called Next Masters before the
yes,
formal
yes, yes,
tie-up,
yes, 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 yes,
and it
yes,
became
yeah,
Tokyo
yeah,
Talent. But
yeah,
I remember it was at Tokyo Film X where it was
yeah,
the first time I introduced my
yeah,
project Ilo Ilo.
yeah,
It
yeah,
was
yeah,
I
yes, yes,
remember it fondly because Ho Xiaoshen was the
yes,
head
yes, yes, yes,
mentor
yes, yeah,
for
yeah,
that
yeah,
session. Actually, he was also
yeah,
the head jury for it.
yeah,
And I won Best Project. Interestingly, I also met my sales agent at Tokyo Film X,
yes, 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 right,
Emily
yeah,
from
yeah,
Elemental
yeah,
Films.
yeah,
And then 3 years later, I was back, like
yeah,
with the film, and the film
yeah,
won the audience prize. It's
yes,
actually
yes,
quite interesting, like the how the festival ecosystem has changed over
yeah,
the years. Like
yes,
from just presentation, but I feel it's so important now to sort of like help support emerging
yes, yes,
filmmakers,
yes, yes,
and
yes, yes,
also to really get their project started. And
yeah, yeah,
I really believe that Tokyo Film X was the starting point for my
yeah,
first
yeah,
film, and it went on
yeah,
to like win in Cannes and all that.
yeah,
And I'm quite I think I've been quite blessed, and it's quite interesting as well. And through all these participants,
Yeah.
I'm working with a lot of other filmmakers from
Mm.
my batch.
Yeah.
Charlotte
Yeah.
Lim from Malaysia is
Yes.
my
Yes. Yes.
assistant
Yes.
director
Yes.
on all my films. And
Yeah. Yeah.
then Molly Sawyer, I'm co-producing her fourth feature. And we
Ah.
all met at that
Yeah.
edition of Next Masters, now called
Yes. 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 Talent
Studio.
studio. Yeah.
It's interesting as well, like that as a producer, you have
Mm.
also moved towards, even though you have worked with very illustrious big
Yeah.
filmmakers, Ho
Yeah. Yeah.
Xiaoxiang,
Yeah.
Kitano, and then Jia Zhangke, but you're
Mm.
still always on the lookout for supporting and helping out younger filmmakers. Like even
Yes. Yes.
from
Yes. Yes.
um, um, uh, your own festival. Like
Mm.
from Singapore, I know that you're co-producing Nicole Midori's
Yes. 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 Yes.
film. I know the
Yeah.
title
Yeah.
has changed. It's now called Last Shadow at First Light.
Yeah. Yes. Yes.
Um,
Yes. Yes. Yes.
but
Yes.
maybe it's good, at this stage to share with us, like, you
Mm.
know, how do you see your role as a film producer, now,
Mm.
having like that 30-year career, like do you see yourself as an enabler for young filmmakers? Do you see yourself as a
Mm.
collaborator or an advisor? Yeah,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
how can young filmmakers sort of like look towards working with established producers like you?
Yeah, and yeah, actually, that yes, and also every time I'm very happy to work with talented young filmmakers. So that's why, and I kept working such a filmmakers. So last year I cooperated and Song Fan's second feature film, The Coming, so which was shown in Berlin this year. And won some prizes and I'm very happy that if the film had some this kind of result and of course it's much better that the film can get a big box office, but most of the films I'm involved in is not easy film to dispute, but at least if the film was selected in the major film festivals and has won the prizes, and I'm very happy to see it. And actually that for me, it's not necessary to work with established filmmaker, but I'm more interested in working with younger filmmakers. And if and yes, and because sometimes they need support or they need some advice, and maybe I sometimes my experience may be good for such young filmmakers. And if we see the results, and I'm very happy to watch it. And recently also I'm also helping some Japanese young filmmakers to make his second feature film or third feature films, because there are some several very good filmmakers, but they do not know how to promote their films. And in Japan, it's not easy to find enough money to for the independent Japanese films. So and every young filmmakers are struggling to find money, and some filmmakers make the film in a very small budget, like one 100,000 US dollars something. But and even such a small budget, sometimes the filmmakers can make a very good film. But if he has a more money, more budget, probably the film must be much stronger. Then I will try to find money from other countries or the other funds, and so not so many Japanese producers know about it. So now I will give them my knowledge or my experience to these filmmakers. And I think that because and yes, and I'm already working in the film business and like more than 30 years. But now that and I learned many things from my seniors, like Izeki-san, who is the producer who has been working with the foreign people, like the producer of the Smoke, and I learned many things from him. So now that my turn to give the knowledge or the experience to the younger filmmakers.
Actually, I'm very
Mm.
curious, especially
Yeah.
from a film producer that has been through like 3 decades of seeing how the trends in cinema has changed over the years.
Yeah, yeah.
Especially, we all know that 2020
Mm.
has been quite a watershed year for cinema
Yes,
in
yes,
general.
yes, yes, yes.
I remember
Mm.
a few months ago, I was helping you record a video in support of
Yes, yes. Oh,
Japanese
thank you very much. Thank you. Yes, yes, yes. Yeah, yeah,
to help them through tough times because there wasn't sort of like
yeah,
government support for them when
yeah,
all the cinemas had to close. So
yeah.
I'm very curious, like can you share with us like your perspectives and your takes on the current trends and the state of where cinema is now, especially we have more OTT platforms, we have Netflix,
Mm,
and it looks like at least in the western part of the world, cinemas are still
mm, mm.
closed.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And yeah, actually, and yeah, yeah. So thank you very much for cooperating to save the art of cinemas, and after that, that's yes, and not big support, but that the Japanese government decided to give some support to the cinemas, and not yet confirmed yet, but something happened, and because of the some cinema people went to meet some politicians and they promised to and find some money to support the other cinemas or the other distributors probably so something is happening in Japan now and luckily that not so many cinemas are closed down so they still showing the films but yes but I think year by year it's not easy to and find the audiences and for the other cinemas so I think that one thing we must do is and, something we must try to find new audiences for art cinema because most of the art cinema audiences are older people, middle-aged or older people, and but we try to show the art of cinema to young people, and then that and in this reason, I think the film festival like Tokyo Film is still important to show that so this is a very good art house film and so you should watch it and then maybe some people are not interested in but there are some people who started interested in watching the art house films and they started to support the art house films and but I think that maybe we can cooperate with Netflix or some internet distribution companies because, of course, mainly so they are looking for some commercial films which appeal to the audiences. But for example, Netflix is buying some art house films which are very which won the prizes in the film festival. So probably so they need some variety in their lineup and of course they did not invest so much money for the art of team, but they still buy the art of team maybe we can cooperate them and try to find the money for the art of films and from this internet distribution company. Now that it's not confirmed yet, but I'm now working with one Japanese distribution company who is now trying creates internet distribution website like Movie. So Movie is a very successful website and which introduced many art house films to the world and there are several companies who are trying to make this and if such a thing continues and probably maybe we can find some a certain income for the art of cinemas from the internet distribution. By now, it's a very almost nothing, but probably so we can find something, and after we created such a platform. So maybe, yes, it's not easy, but we must try very hard to keep working. And I think that I'm kind of optimistic because when I joined the film industry in 1980s, and people are very afraid that now that we are losing the audiences, and maybe the future of the Japanese cinemas is not so great like this, but still we can still make the film, and sometimes something happens. So for example, when the VHS appears, and we can expect much money from VHS. Now that I think that maybe we can expect some money from internet distribution or any other medias, which uh, we can expect for the source of the investments. Yes, probably I think that I'm not so pessimistic. I think that we can find some way. We don't know what it is, but anyway, I think important thing is to not give up. We must keep showing the other cinemas in the film festivals or some distribute and we can cooperate with the distributor and keep showing the other cinemas in the cinemas. And so then probably this kind of things may change something, I think.
On that note, I
Yeah.
wanted to sort of like open the floor to questions from
Yeah.
our audience, to our participants. There's a question from Peng Shaoyu, like, how do you deal with issues when there is disagreement between you and the director?
Yes. And okay, yes. Yeah, it's yeah, and I don't know, and actually sometimes if that I'm convinced by the what director said, and I of course I respect his idea. Basically, I try to respect the director's idea and try to find a solution something. And but I don't know. Usually, and I have not so big problems with the director. For example, with Ho Xiaoxian, sometimes I have the argument about the editing, and sometimes the Ho Xiaoxian follows my advice, sometimes not. But anyway, finally, I respect his decision, and even if I'm not convinced 100%, and if he insisted to this, and I think that I will respect his decision. But maybe yeah, like this, uh, but if it causes some over budget, something I can say, I must say, I'm sorry, we don't have money. Yeah, I cannot do this. But anyway, I will try to do something try to my best to find additional budget. For example, that and I will try to raise some money from the support from the fund or something. So I will try my best, but if I cannot do it, I must tell to the directors, I'm sorry, I cannot do this anymore. So you must give up doing this. But not so many times I told it. So usually that such a dispute will be can find some solution.
I've got a very interesting question from
Yeah,
Pan
yeah,
Wenbo. I'm guessing he's from China.
yeah.
Is it like with the increasing budget, as we've mentioned just now, that his budgets have grown over the years for Jia Zhangke,
Mm,
more and more Chinese audiences now feel that his films are less artistic than
mm,
before
mm,
when he was
mm,
younger, such as
mm,
Xiao
mm,
Wu and Platform,
mm,
because there
mm,
are more considerations to the sort of
mm,
expectations
mm,
and the
mm,
reactions of the
mm,
Chinese audience. What is
mm,
your opinion on this?
mm,
Because you
mm,
have followed his career, you've worked with him closely over the years.
mm.
What's your feelings about this?
Yes, and actually, I think that yes, and personally, I like platform very much, and it's and if I say what is his best film, I would say platform or maybe Shawu, and his first two films is still the best film for me, and because for the platform, I think he didn't really think about the audiences. I think. When he was shooting, so he just shot what he would like to shoot, and he didn't. And yes, he didn't maybe think about how the audiences think about it. So it's a very long cut and a very a very long cut, and from the it's very wide scenes, and maybe the people can not recognize the actors' faces, and but probably after he had the interviews and for the platform, and probably he realized that some film critics misunderstood the actors' faces, and because there are two actresses, one is Chow Tao and one is Yang Lina, but some and yes, I was with him on the interviews, and some of the film critics, they of course they love the film a lot, so they praise the film a lot, but sometimes they misunderstood the two actresses, and because it's very difficult to recognize their faces. And after when he made the Unknown Pleasures, probably he changed the style a little bit, because he did not use such a distant shot, and also that he chose the two young boys and with very different faces. So and probably he thinks that in this style of platform, some maybe people maybe they misunderstand what he would like to make. So then he somewhat he thinks about audiences. I think he didn't tell me about it, but I felt that maybe and for the Unknown Pleasures he changed his style a little bit. And still that's a very long shot, and most of the scenes are one scene, one cut, and in this case he's very stubborn. He doesn't change his style, but he tried to show the actors' faces more clearly, and he chooses two different actors who doesn't look like, so, and so people do not make misunderstand them. So and and I think that he thinks about something about audience, but I think it is a good thing for the filmmakers, because if or if he doesn't change his style at all, probably it's not interesting for me to work with him, because every time that in the editing he asked me that if I can understand, if the people can understand this film or not, and I'm kind of the kind of a tester or something, and because I can watch a film from the point of view of the some third people. So then that yes, and I say, oh yes, maybe audiences may not understand this, and you must change this editing something. And some, of course, sometimes he didn't follow my idea, but sometimes he followed my idea. And so this is a kind of a collaboration between the producer and director, I think. And so if Jajanku did not care about audiences at all, maybe he can make a very strong film, but probably most of the people cannot understand the film at all. So and then that it's I'm not sure if he would like to make this kind of film again or not. But recently that he needs more budget to make the film, and in this case he must think about some audiences, and I think it's very natural, and so people cannot blame him about this. But one thing it's clear is that he changed the style several times, but and he did not how to say, he did not change his own things in the film, because every time that the subject is what he would like to make, and he so yes, that's why I kept working with him. If he didn't care about the audience at all, maybe there's no meaning that I'm involved in his filmmaking.
I have
Yeah,
another question here from
yeah,
our audience.
yeah.
What kind of Asian films are you looking forward to seeing, or you're hoping that young directors, new directors will make in the future?
Hmm. Yeah, and it's very difficult. Actually, it's very difficult to answer, because every time I expect to watch something new. So maybe yes, and if I answer this question, that I would like to watch film which are different from any other Asian films. I'm not sure if it's a good answer for this question or not, but every time I'm looking for something new. For example, this year in Total Filmmakers, I selected the Iranian film called Hairless Crime, which is a very unique film. I think that I never watched this kind of Iranian film before, and we had many applications from Iran, but many of the films just follow the style of the Asghar Farhadi. It's some social matters and good acting, of course, and the film is not bad, but it's a kind of the copy of the Asghar Farhadi. So I didn't select this film, but this film, Careless Crime, is a very unique film. So that's why I selected the films because it's something new, and I never watched this kind of film before. So it's very complicated film and not easy to understand. And actually, some of the audiences are very puzzled after watching the film. But I think that even though I select the film because the film tried to do something new, which other filmmakers did not do before. Yes, and I expect this kind of something new to the Asian films. Yeah.
Do you have, like practical advice for young filmmakers, particularly young writer directors or young producers, like taking that step towards the first feature film? What would be the advice you would give?
Yeah, and yes, and yes, it's so in making the first feature film, yes. Anyway, the best thing is believe yourself and make the film what you would like to make. Because first film is very important. If the first film is good, it's possible to continue. But if the first film is had a bad reputation, it's very difficult to find investors or very difficult to continue make the films in some way. So probably so that you will regret if that first film is not what you would like to make. So probably uh, uh, anyway, so make what you really want to make. So yeah, this is yes, some kind of advice. But of course, you must care about the budget or something because, and otherwise, if the first films has a big mess and nobody wants to work with you anymore, so probably it's important to yes make the film within the budget, but do not change, try to not change something you must make.
Um, with that, I want to sort of round up the session with
Yeah,
one one last question, like
yeah,
to
yeah,
Ichiyama-san,
yeah.
especially, you have had like a 30-year long career. You have worked with some of the biggest names in Asian cinema. You have
Mm,
worked with up and coming young Japanese and also international
mm,
Asian directors.
mm.
Very curious, in your whole 30-year career, um, is there any, like, if there's one regret, what's the regret you might have? Like, for example, it's a film that you wanted to make but you couldn't raise the finance for, or like, the film
Uh,
didn't turn out the way you wanted it to, when it could have been a very good film, or there was someone, like, is there, if there's, can you share, like, is there um one regret that you might have in that whole long career?
yeah, yeah. I think there are several several regrets maybe, but yes, when I in my very early careers, and it's before I worked with Shen, and I was working with several Japanese projects, and some project I must cancel it. There's one project which I like. The I like I like it's based on the one comic books, and but finally we couldn't get the approval from the original author. So then I and the director discussed, and then we decided to make the original script and original film based on the original scripts. And it's inspired by this comic book, but the director wrote the script. And first, yes, it looks nice, but later that so I think it was the same time that in Berlin, the Western the wall of Berlin was destroyed. So it's a big thing. It's a late 1980s, it's a very big news. And the filmmaker happened to go to the Berlin Film Festival at the time. So he was very much influenced by this incident, and many political things appeared in the script. And so it's totally different. And actually, I didn't intend to make the political films, but the film itself is changed a lot. And so I'm somewhat very furious. And so then I told to the directors, I'm sorry, I cannot work with the film. So then that yes, and the project was it broke up. And then later that the filmmaker finally made the film by himself, and he could find another producer, and the film became the first idea. So which means that it's exactly what I want to make. And so I thought, I shouldn't just break up with him. I should have discussed with him, and then that maybe we need some time to discuss, because and at that time he was very heated up by the real incidents which happened in Berlin. So then the project changed everything. He changed it, but so finally he made the films which is based on the first idea. So yes, and yeah, I told the filmmaker yes, thank you. And actually I select the film in Tokyo Film Festival. So and I met the filmmaker. I make again that yes, and I like your film very much. Thank you very much for like this. But yes, and I have some regrets. I should say should just cancel the project. I should have discussed with him. But at that time, maybe I was too young, so I'm somewhat furious, and I do not want to talk with him anymore. So I just canceled the project. This is one of the just one regret which I experienced in my early stages.
Is there anything else you want to share?
What?
Is there anything else you want to share?
And no, that's fine. I don't know what I should say. And also sometimes I have some regret that when sometimes we must start the shootings and in various reasons, because of the actors' schedule are limited, and or the so mainly this, and sometimes the actor is very busy. If we lose this chance, we cannot make the film sometimes like this. And sometimes during shooting, I regret, oh, I should have need time to develop the script more. And after the shooting started, I realized, oh, the script is not good enough. And finally, the film is not good enough. But and yes, this thing happened several times, because in many reasons, yes, I say okay, let's start shooting. But after shooting started, I realized that oh, the script is not good enough, and we need some time to develop it. But it's very difficult decision, because if I say that, so please stop this project and think about the script again, it maybe some time it means that we lose actors, and so we must find new actors. It may be very complicated. But yes, yes, and sometimes yes, and this happens. Yes.
I'm very curious when those kind of things happen, when you're shooting and you realize that the script isn't right. Did the films turn out well, or actually not so good?
No, not so good. In not so good. And I try to make it better during the editing. And but of course, somewhat I can make it better. But finally, it's very not such. I'm not satisfied with the result. And yes, and yeah, in this case, I thought, oh, I must do more discussion with the director before start shooting.
Yeah. On that note, I wanted to wrap this up with, I remember something that director Ho Xiaoshen told me, at the Cannes Film Festival, like several years ago. And what you said just reminded me of what he told me. He said it in Chinese, 没拍到的是剪不出来的. So whatever you have not shot, you won't be able to edit anything out of it. You can't cut something that you haven't shot. And that stayed in my head. Every time I'm filming, I always remind myself, until you get it, like you can't fix it in the cutting room. Thank you, Ichiyama-san. Thank you for sharing the past 1.5 hours with us. A lot of insight. And thank you for also mentoring our young filmmakers at the Southeast Asian Film Lab.
Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And I hope to see you in Japan soon.
Okay, see you soon. See you soon somewhere. Okay. Yes. Bye. Bye. Bye.
Okay. Bye.
Bye. Bye.